Well, thank you so much, everybody. This is Lance Goolsby coming to you on the GDA Radio Podcast, as always. Today is the 27th of January. Such a great day. I'm glad to have you guys listening in, as usual, letting my ugly voice talk into your pretty ears. But we got a little bit of a mix-up on it this week. We got somebody new coming in to start co-hosting the show with me. A wonderful accents coming from 3/4 of the way around the world. It might be snowing where I'm at, but where she's sitting, it is currently 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and they are suffering Hades weather. In fact, the forecast the last couple days is for Satan to be showing up and helping cool the place down. I want to take the time to welcome 42 onto the show. You might know her from the GDA Facebook group, Global Detection Adventure. She's one of the most active admin that's on there. So, 42, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
Well, for those who don't know, you are an avid metal detector from down under, I believe in the Adelaide area, if I'm correct.
That is correct.
See, I can read before I get on the show. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do down there, what kind of things that you're looking for while you're detecting.
Oh, well, I'm just into history, anything that's old. I like the old stuff. You know, I don't go down to the beach very often and look for the modern spendable stuff or anything like that. I like to, find history and, if I can reunite it with the property owner or somebody who might have owned it in the past, then I'm more than happy to do so. That's where I get a real kick. Which
is actually something that you were doing in the last couple of weeks, was reuniting an owner with 2 rings that she lost, correct?
Yes, that is correct. There was a cry for help that went out on one of the Adelaide Lost and Found Facebook groups, and someone shared that to a metal detecting group that I'm a part of, and we rallied together, and 8 or so of us, I don't know the exact number, but there was quite a few of us that went down, and some of us had to drive, an hour and a half to get there, and we rocked up, and people sort of just spread out and said, where were you doing your barbecue, and what were the circumstances in which it got lost, and we sort of spread out and started swinging, and within, I reckon I found it within 10 minutes of looking.
Yeah, and you were the lottery winner. That's really fantastic.
I was the lottery winner. Yeah, she was so excited. She was, so relieved. You could just see the it was almost like grief just wash away, because, they were very sentimental to her.
Yeah.
And, she'd been missing them for 4 days, and...
Oh, geez. I've seen a picture of them. They're beautiful rings.
Yeah, they are. We'll see if we can get a picture up for you.
Yeah, well,
able to have a look of the rings themselves.
Maybe we'll have that up when we get the website up.
Yeah. She couldn't speak. Her friend came over and, actually took the rings out of my hand and gave them to her, because she was just so gobsmacked that she couldn't.
Oh, wow.
Motor functions probably weren't working properly, but she was very relieved, and I was very happy to be able to give it back to her. And everybody who went down there on the day was, just really thrilled for her. So it was a really good story.
That's really good. I love that picture of you. I've seen the picture. It's you sitting there looking at the rings, and her with both hands up to her mouth, just looking absolutely surprised that you were able to find them, and just relief, like tears of relief just coming out.
Yeah. And I think half the shock was that they were found so quickly as well, because, I got there about just after 11 o'clock in the morning, and I was faffing about putting my sunscreen on, having a chat to people I hadn't seen before, talking to her about where she was, going to the toilet because it'd been a long drive. And then, okay, well, we should probably start looking now.
Howdy, ho.
Beep, 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 beep. I was like, oh, what's this? Oh, I found something. And she's just like, don't even mess with me. It's like, no, I found something. You need to come over here, and I found a couple of rings. You need to come over here and, tell me if they're yours. And she came over and she was just like,
what happened? How did she lose them? Were they on her finger? Did she take them off for some reason?
No, see, where we were was a caravan park by the beach. So they'd been to the beach and they'd taken the precaution to remove them from their hands while they were on the beach, and they stuck them on a lanyard.
Mm.
And then when they left the beach, they, pulled on the lanyard around the neck and said, "Yes, the rings are still here." So she knew that they went lost on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And when they drove back to the caravan park where the barbecues were, the barbecues were taken up. So, but they had a portable one in the back of the ute, and so they got that out and started to cook their barbecue there. And the rings had gone they were still on the lanyard, but the lanyard had gone from the neck to the pocket, and there was a hook on the lanyard where the rings were secured to, and the hook broke. So that's how they got lost.
Oh.
So just through movement and around the things in and out of pockets and stuff, the rings have come off the lanyard and have fallen onto the ground. And there were 3 rings that were lost, but only 2 of them were recovered. And the 2 that I found were underneath the soil, level of the soil. But we never ended up finding the 3rd ring, which was the husband's ring. I did go back down the next weekend. I went camping, and I thought, well, why don't we go there and I have another crack at it? But still wasn't able to find it. So what we suspect has happened is that all 3 rings have fallen out at once, and the man's ring has fallen on been left on the surface, and the woman's rings have gone beneath.
Yeah, somehow got underneath the surface and stayed.
Yeah, because I just brushed the soil away lightly, and they were just staring and shining at me in the sun.
It could have been one of those things like they fell out of their pocket and they stepped on it and just pushed those 2 right into the ground.
Yeah, or even just the weight of the rings themselves falling on the ground.
Is it that soft?
Enough. If you drop something in the sand, the weight of it just takes it just below the surface level, because there was enough loose soil on top for it to just drop just beneath the surface of it. And so, but if there were 3 at a time, they might have all piled up, because they were sitting on top of each other. So they might have all just piled up, and his ring might have been seen by somebody and picked up. And so, she's pursuing, trying to recover that, see if anyone's reported it at the police stations and stuff like that. So
that's fantastic.
But she was very happy that, the women's rings were the ones that they wanted back. That was where she had the sentimentality.
Okay.
They would have loved to have got the man's ring back, but it didn't hold as that sentimental value to her. So so she was just, incredibly happy and bought me lunch.
Well, 10 minutes worth of work for a full meal.
Yeah, look, I would have been happy with just a thanks, but, she insisted on buying me lunch, so who am I to say no?
Exactly.
It's a nice bakery down there.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm glad you were able to help out today. So if anybody else has some stories like that, please let us know on the GDA Facebook group. We would love to find out. That's Global Detection Adventures. If you're not a member, feel free to join. We do need to approve you with 2 super simple questions. All you have to do is answer those, and we'll bring you in. That's it. There's only 2 rules. Number 1, don't try and sell me some Folkley glasses. Number 2 is don't start slagging somebody off. This is a friendly group. This is family friendly. No bad language, and don't talk bad about anybody. We don't care about the rumors. We don't care about anything else. Let's just share the love of the hobby. And that's it. Feel free to head on over there. And there's so many of our friends, but we'll be bringing them up later on at the end of the show. You can feel free to add there as well. But that's it for now, 42. I think what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going into the find of the week. How about that? GDA find of the week. What do we got this week?
Well, for find of the week this week, I have selected the Double Strike Indian Head Penny from 1864 by DJ Yost. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah, I think so. I think you are, actually.
I hope so. I really hope so. I was blown away by this particular find when I put out a call for your error coins.
Uh-huh.
And I've never seen anything like that. I am really surprised that it went into circulation for starters, and that then somebody lost it. So I was very, very impressed. I think that's a really great find. And the only thing that I thought was disappointing about it was that there was no video for me to watch of that recovery.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's horrible. But it's what year was it? 1864.
1864. So it's an Indian head penny. The photos are on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, the Indian head pennies were around from 1859 to 1909. Now there's there's two different weight classes for them. From 1859 to 1864, which is when his was found, they used to weigh 4.67 grams, and after that they switched to 3.11 grams. So his 1864 double strike was right at the end of that initial production. So that's a really good double strike year to be finding, because it's probably going to be a lot rarer finding the 1864s, since only half the year on the 4.67 grams was actually minted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah. And,
no, that's really good. I was just, blown away. That was a really good find. I've never seen anything like that in Australia, not found at any rate.
No, that's a really, really good find, especially in Australia. And DJ Yost, I've actually known him he's been on, I think, a member of GDA for a couple of years now. Shout out to him down there. Good job finding that in Australia. And
no, I don't think he found it in Australia. I think I've just never seen anything like that in an Australian coin. Yeah.
Let me double check. I think he is actually from Australia.
Oh, is he?
I think. Let me double check. I'll find out. It's been so long since I talked about him. But that's like I said, the double strikes are extremely sought after because of the mint failure. And so it's going to be really nice to see that one cleaned up. If you want to take a look at it, we'll share it on a post under the official GDA page and let you guys take a look at the coin. I'm double checking DJ Yost and seeing exactly where he is. Boy, my Facebook is really attentive today, so...
Here, you keep talking and I'll look it up.
Okay. But yeah, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to go ahead really quick. We're going to do just go into a little bit of an advertisement break. We'll figure this one up. I know he's from Nixa, Missouri. DJ Yost is from Nixa, Missouri. So it's actually really good find. It doesn't even matter where he found that. He could have found that on the moon. He could have found that right outside the mint in Philadelphia or wherever that coin happened to be minted. And it doesn't change the fact of how wonderful that coin is. So DJ, good job rescuing that coin. And it's really good seeing those. But yeah, we're going to be heading off to a really quick commercial. We're going to be coming back. We're going to give the GDA shoutouts, and we're going to be going straight into the, I guess you could say, the shrimps on the bobby and the Foster's beer of the show. I am going to have...
No one drinks Fosters in Australia.
I'm going to be made so much fun of for my Australian ignorance by the end of this show today, so that's all right. All right, we'll be right back. We'll see you guys in a sec.
Is it possible that you're on the market for a brand new metal detector? Or you got a metal detector, but you want to look for something that's better or has more compatibility with the way that you metal detect? Well, let me tell you about the Rutus Alter 71. Check it out at rutus.com.pl. The Rutus Alter 71 has 71 frequencies to choose from. Yes, I actually just said that. 71 frequencies. It also has the ability, let's say that you're out metal detecting, you want to make sure that certain objects create a certain sound. You can assign certain VDI numbers a certain sound. That is amazing. A fully customizable metal detector that is a mid-range device. We're not talking a upper price level machine. We're talking a mid-level machine here that has high quality functionality. This is not the typical mid-level machine. This thing has 71 frequencies, like I just said. That's why it has the name Alter 71. It also has a dual mode. The dual mode allows you to more easily discriminate between objects that are in the ground. You'd only need one detector for large and small objects. The 8 reaction levels, yes, 8 reaction levels, and the dual mode helps you better identify good targets above or below crap targets. Yes, I just said that. This is one of the most amazing machines that you can get for this price range. You do not need to know anything about these high quality machines or any of these high speed machines. You can almost jump right into the Alter 71 and get going. And if you have questions, check it out online. Check it out on YouTube. You can find everything right there. I'm a dummy. I'm a complete dummy. And I can metal detect with this thing. And that should say something. Imagine having a machine that has motion discrimination. Yes, motion discrimination. You swing over an object and there's 2 things on the ground. But as you're swinging, it accurately discriminates between the 2 objects. Iron, silver, iron, silver, iron, silver. It is that amazing. So make sure you go to rutus.com.pl. That's rutus.com.pl and check out this great machine. You will love it. All right, guys, let's get on with the show.
All right, so we're going to be getting into the Gda Shoutouts. These are the people that have been interactive with us on the Global Detection Adventures Facebook group. Feel free to come on over and take a listen and share with us. Take a listen. I guess you can't really listen to posts, but hey, this is my dumb brain trying to multitask at one time. Come on over and take a look at all the posts and share with us what you're finding out there as well. So we'll go ahead and start with the shout-outs.
It's the Gda Shoutouts.
So I'm going to shout out real quick to one of my good friends that's out there right now. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but he has been kind of active in the last week. It turns out that he actually moved to Germany as well. I want to give a big shout out to Ian Davies. Welcome back, brother. Let me know where you're at in Germany. We'll definitely have to hook up and actually go out metal detecting at some time. But yeah, I'll give it back over to you, 42, and let's get the shout outs.
Yeah, so I've got a few people to shout out for. Obviously, DJ Yost for the find of the week, and the other 2 people that I'd like to give a shout out to is Lee Sampson and Jerry Olson, who are unfortunately locked in due to the cold. They can't get out as much as what they would like to. We've had a few discussions about the extremes, what they're experiencing and the extremes that I'm experiencing. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, it's been a wild year for weather.
It's been cold. Yeah, Jerry's told me that, they've had a few people pass away due to the cold, and that's just crazy, unheard of in Australia. No one really, I've never heard of anybody dying through cold exposure. Certainly not in South Australia. So, I really, really feel for that. That it's just something that I've never really contemplated before. So, stay safe, guys.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the other things that we wanted to kind of talk about as far as the extremes that have been going on right now. This is a good segue for us to get into. I talked before about the kind of things that we're going to be needing here in the Northern Hemisphere for this time of the year when we go out metal detecting. But in the Southern Hemisphere, it's quite an opposite thing that's going on right now. We're having extreme colds up here, but down in your neck of the woods, you guys are having the exact opposite, extreme highs going on. So for the metal detectors,
we hit 46 point something degrees.
That's like
broke a record in my city.
Yeah, that's like 115 degrees
you have to do
Fahrenheit.
The translation on the
I just did 115 degrees Fahrenheit.
There you go. They say that that doesn't mean much to me, but 46 degrees, it means hot.
Yeah, that's what it means to me here in Germany as well. If it gets to 46 degrees, that's when we just admit, okay, hell took over.
We tend to stay indoors and not go out metal detecting.
Yeah, in Germany, we have a tendency to start going to the churches, so because something's going on. But yeah, so what kind of things are people going to be needing down in Australia right now during this time of the year for heading out metal detecting? What's important?
Yeah, well, in no particular order, you are going to need some sunscreen, a hat, and water. Water is really important, and it can be quite heavy to lug around with you, especially if you're going sort of out bush. But you can get those backpacks these days with a water bladder in them. So that's what I've been looking at getting.
Yeah, the camelbacks are
normally
really good.
I just carry a bottle of water around with me and like an evaporative cooling cloth. So I just douse the cooling cloth and I shake it out and it cools, and I just put that on my neck. The other thing that I think is probably a good thing to at least have in the car is a first aid kit, because we do have a lot of things that can bite you and inflict a nasty injury.
Yeah, especially in Australia. You guys have, I think, 1/4 of all the poisonous snakes in the world.
It's something like that. We don't really have too many snake bites. Not that I hear that get reported, but they're very present.
Yeah.
I've seen snakes while I've been out, and I've seen snake skins while I've been out. So they're definitely there. They're more likely to sort of try and get away from you. But it's still important to make sure that you're aware of where you are and what you need to do to treat a snake bite if you get one.
And it's good having that first aid kit, because from no legs to 8 legs, there's something out there that's going to be attacking you.
The other thing that can be, important depending on your own personal preference is bug spray. We do get a lot of flies, and if you're going out towards the evening, you get quite a lot of mosquitoes. But just back onto the snakes, I don't know whether you use them, Lance, but I use them. They're called gaiters. They stop, they're like a little layer of protection that you put on your legs, on the lower half of your legs to stop. They can stop all sorts of things like prickles and stuff like that when you're walking around in the bush. But you can get them to protect against snake bite. They're not always going to guarantee a protection against snake bite, but it's better than nothing. It does, especially in the hot weather, it does add that extra layer of something that's going to keep the heat in. But I think I'd rather be hot than bitten.
Exactly.
And the other two things that I always make sure that I try and keep on me is a little spray bottle full of water, especially if it's a little bit muddy. It just, washes away the dirt a lot easier. And I find through my own stuff that if you get rid of the dirt from the coin or whatever it is that you've cleaned up not long after you've got it out the ground, it just seems to have a little bit of a better appearance. So, and I try not to brush coins just, so that they don't get scratched. So just having a little squirt bottle of water can be good. And the last one is a loop, a little magnifying glass that you can use to see the date on that coin.
For me, it's reading glasses.
But that's normally, that's quite often gets left in the car because I forget it. But, I can always go back to the car and get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, those are some of the things that we definitely have to remember to bring. Magnifying glasses, I don't personally need. I just need my reading glasses, and then I'm fine. Those little numbers, they don't bug me so much if I have my reading glasses on. But yeah, and as far as water, everybody knows my preference for cleaning coins, so I won't go any further on that one. I'm a coin licker. So, yeah. I clean it up as much as I can with the brushes that I have, and then I get the last little bits off naturally, I guess you could say it. So, that sounds...
I have been known to do that, but I don't like the gritty taste.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind it that much. I just, I just embrace the fact that I'm a coin licker. It just makes it seem so much better. But anyway, I guess we'll just get into the show. We got one last advertisement coming in. It's only a couple seconds long. It's about 30 seconds long. We'll do that one, and we're going to go into the GDA Find Stories for this week. And I think everybody's going to really love this one because this takes us right back to the beginning of metal detecting. So we will see you guys in about 30 seconds.
It's not about the permission. It's not about the country. It's not about the person. It's not about the machine. It's about the history. It's about our combined love for the hobby. Rudus Metal Detectors knows this. So let's put a stop to the infighting happening around the globe in the metal detecting community. Let's reach out and embrace each other. Let's welcome new people to the hobby with open arms. Let's share the love for the hobby. Let's show the world we enjoy what we do. Visit rudus.com.pl and see a professional quality machine at a fraction of the cost of the next leading brand. Let's bring greatness back into the hobby. Rudus Metal Detectors. Let's all discover new possibilities.
All right, so this week's story is going to take us all the way back to September 8th, 1841, which is going to kind of confuse a lot of people exactly where we're going with this. But let's go ahead and start this one off. So the guy's name is Charles Julius Guiteau, or Guiteau. Oh, it's French. It's Guiteau is what it is. I'm looking at the pronunciation, and I'm still getting it wrong. Oh, God. Myself. But anyway, so we're going to begin this story on September 8th, 1841, is the day that he was born. It seems a little out there for metal detecting, as electricity was really had not been harnessed. People knew about it, but people were constantly trying to figure out exactly what to do with it at this point. Charles Guiteau was born the fourth of 6 children. He moved with his family to Wisconsin in 1850 and lived there with until his mother died in 1855. And then his family, and his father moved back to Freeport, Illinois, where they were originally from. Later, he inherited $1,000, which I did the translation, is the equivalent of $28,000. And in today's money. And at that point, he decided to move to Ann Arbor, Michigan, in hopes of attending later on the University of Michigan after finishing high school. But oddly enough, his grades in algebra and French were horrible, so his father even wrote him with his concerns about his progress, and in 1860, Charles quit it altogether. From this time, he joined a cult, which his father was a member of, loosely based on the Christian religion, but they worshipped the leader as a messiah. And then in 1880, Charles decided that he was going to become a politician, or some kind of a political figure, as it were. He was a staunch Republican, and Charles wrote and passed out a speech called Garfield Against Hancock. And after Garfield won the Republican nomination, Charles delivered the speech at most they're saying that he actually gave this speech twice, which is actually known. But copies of the speech were passed out to members of the Republican National Committee at their summer 1880 meeting in New York City. And I see 42 sitting there staring at me going, what exactly has this to do with metal detecting, period?
No.
A lot of people
never do that.
A lot of people probably know what's going on after I said that the speech was called Garfield Against Hancock. A lot of people know where this is heading right now. But over all this, it ends up that Guiteau believed himself to be largely responsible for Garfield's election in November of 1880. He felt that he was the person, because of the speech he gave 2 times and handed out to the Republican National Committee that was the reason why this man was elected president. And then from that point on, because of this, he insisted that he should be awarded a consulship in the city of Vienna, Austria, for the work that he did to get the president elected, which he then later decided Paris would be a more fitting position for him to be at. I mean, if that's not ego, I don't know what that is. But in early 1881, the letters and job requests from Guiteau were just ending up in the queue with all the other administration job seekers. From what I was understanding at this time, there was actually a line outside the White House of people that were looking for a job with the president, not to mention people that were constantly writing the administration asking for jobs as well. Which is kind of weird because I did the research. Garfield Andrew A. Garfield actually didn't even want to be elected president at all. It took them 32 times until they finally said, you know what, you're just going to be the guy. Go on. And so that's how he ended up getting onto the ballot and then eventually elected president of the United States. But the problem is that Guiteau is now living in Washington, D.C. And so a lot of people don't know exactly what Washington, D.C. is. So I want to kind of clarify this real quick. I got it written in here. It says, give info on the city now. Okay. Washington, D.C. does not belong to any of the 50 states in the Union. Washington, D.C. is its own separate entity. It is a city that belongs to no state. So in that way, nobody can claim fame to the seat of the country. So the seat of the country, the actual place where the president has the White House and where the country is run, is an independent of the rest of the country. That way, nobody can lay claim to it. So a lot of people get confused when I say that I'm from Washington State. They are like, oh, you're from Washington, D.C. I'm like, no, I'm from Washington State. That's a state on the other side of the country. Washington, D.C. belongs to nobody. So now you guys know. Now you're smarter. Almost as smart as me. And trust me, you don't want to be that dumb. Guiteau was financially destitute. Guiteau was
I'm not laughing.
Guiteau was financially destitute and forced to sneak from boarding house to boarding house without paying. So basically, he'd stay a week at a boarding house and then sneak out in the middle of the night so he wouldn't have to pay for the last week's boarding and go check into the next boarding house the next morning. So he was unable to pay for his living expenses, which is actually kind of funny. He needed to walk.
You'd never get away with that today.
No, there's no way. I mean, we have, the
Facebook group within minutes.
Washington, D.C. boarding houses looking for. Have you seen this guy? Yes. So basically,
name and shame.
He was walking around. This was March, by the way, of 1881. He was walking around in the cold as it was a snowy, cold March that year. So he was walking around. The only thing he had on was a raggedy suit with no coat or boots. And most importantly, in the late 1880s, a man was walking around Washington, D.C. without a hat, which is a very big no-no at the time in the United States. Every man needed to have a hat. It was a sign of, manliness, I guess. I don't know exactly what it was, but everybody had to have a hat. So a lot of times if you got into fights, the first thing that came off was the hat. They'd put that down because that's the important thing. His days were spent in hotel lobbies reading discarded newspapers, and he would use the complimentary stationery that the hotels would leave out in the lobbies for people that were renting rooms to write letters complaining about his claim for consulship to the White House. So he would sit in a hotel, write a letter to the White House complaining why he hasn't been assigned his position in Paris, France. So May arrived of 1881, and he was still literally living on the streets. And he encountered the Secretary of State, James Blaine. And he inquired Blaine about his appointment to Paris. Blaine got pissed off at Mr. Guiteau, and this is a direct quote of what Blaine said to Guiteau at the time. He said, "Never speak to me again of the Paris consulship as long as you live." A very polite way of telling him where he could shove it, basically. But that was it. Guiteau now felt he had no other choice, and God had chosen him to act as a tool for the removal of James A. Garfield from his term as president in order to remove the Secretary of State Blaine from his position. So that was... Yeah, you heard me right. His plan was to kill the President of the United States so that Secretary of State would lose his job.
That's silly.
I don't like my car, so I'm going to kill the president of Ford. It just doesn't work.
Your logic is flawed.
So he went out and bought a 442 Webley British Bulldog, and he bought it with pearl handles. He specifically told the guy at the counter he wanted the gun with the pearl handles. You know why? He said that it would. He said it would look better on display in a museum as the weapon that killed the presidents.
He's a forward thinker.
But here's a little bit of irony. The Smithsonian photographed the pistol in the early 1900s, but it has now since been lost. So, yeah, you didn't see that one coming. So on July 2nd, 1881, Charles Lay and Wade, as President Garfield entered the now demolished Baltimore and Potomac Railroad Station. Potomac. I think that's how you pronounce that. The demolished Baltimore and Potomac Railroad Stations. Charles got his shoe shined and then paid a cab to take him to jail later that day. So you were right. He was a forward thinker. He
was anticipating his capture.
Yeah.
Or he was going to surrender.
Yeah, he was going to surrender is basically what he was going to do. So he paid to have his shoes shined so that he would look good while he was doing the deed. You know what I'm saying? And then he told a taxi, he's like, hey, come on back here and pick me up, in like 40 minutes. I'll be standing right here, but the one running, and I'll jump in, just take me to the police station. So yeah, that's what he was expecting this to happen. So when President Garfield entered the train station, Guiteau stepped forward and shot James A. Garfield twice in the back. The second shot of which punctured his lumbar vertebrae, just missing his spinal cord. President Garfield lay on the ground bleeding, with people gathering around to help and gaze upon the seriously injured American president. Charles Guiteau was immediately surrounded by authorities and yelled, quote, "I am a stalwart of the servants. Chester A. Arthur is president now." So basically, he was announcing that the vice president of the United States was now officially the president. By the way, this wasn't the case because he had not killed the president at this point. Garfield was carried upstairs in the train station, but the location of the bullet could not be found. They saw the entry wound, but they had no idea where the bullet had lay inside his body. They then transferred him to the White House, where the doctors said he wouldn't survive the night, but amazingly, the next day his vital signs were great, and a recovery was hoped. The people of the state began a vigil outside the White House, and there were updates coming to the public about his status almost daily. So they were constantly letting the people outside know who were holding a vigil. So they transferred him. The doctor searched throughout his abdomen with his fingers. So basically what they had done is they had cut him open at some point. And please remember, this is before anesthesia. So just remember what's going on here. So they had actually opened up the president and just began digging through his abdomen, looking for a bullet inside the president, just moving stuff out of the way.
I bet you they didn't clean their hands either.
That's one of the things. They used unsterilized hands. They didn't have gloves or anything like that. They had unsterilized bandages and instruments. The instruments from the day before were being used that day, and they'd also be used the next day. They probably just sat there, ran some water over it, and just kept using it. But the bullet just kept remaining elusive. And here we go. We enter with our hero of the day, Mr. Alexander Graham Bell. He's the inventor and creator of the first practical use telephone and founder of the American Telephone and Telegraph Company. People in the United States know it as AT&T. In the North Americas, having heard about and seeing firsthand a device invented by the French inventor Gustave Trouvé, Bell developed a handheld device to search the president's body for the bullet. He had created a detector that successfully found bullets insides of beef. So he'd used this multiple times, and now it was the first practical use for this device that he had created because he was really in awe of Gustave Trouvé's invention. But however, the physician for the president was only going to allow Mr. Bell to use the device on the right side of the president's torso.
Yeah. Even though people had their hands in there moving stuff around, which could have moved things around.
Yeah, so they're only going to let him, use this device on the right side of his torso. So the device didn't seem to work, and this was to much of the chagrin of everybody that was there. The first problem was that the doctor said that he could only scan the right side of the president. After his death, spoilers, by the way, there's a big spoiler there. Sorry if I ruined this for anybody. Yes, the president died. They found the bullet located in the left side of the president's body. It wasn't too far from the spinal cord. Basically, the spinal cord had really slowed it down, and it was kind of over there on the left side over there. They thought that it actually gone to the right when it hit the vertebrae, but it actually cut and curved to the left. Excuse me, I think I said right earlier. It got curved to the left. Second, the detector didn't seem to work. It was showing signals all over, which Bell couldn't rightly explain. He didn't understand what was going on. But because he had told the physicians to remove any metal from underneath the president to ensure that the detector was going to work right, and the president was laying on top of a horsehair mattress. But the problem was the physicians hadn't taken into account that the bed underneath the horsehair mattress had metal springs inside it. So the metal detector was not only working, it was working exceptionally well because it was picking up the metal in the springs underneath the president. It's from this point that it was seen how metal detectors could actually be used in a basic sense. So he understood the fact that it had failed on this mission, what he had actually gone out to do. And later he realized it wasn't of any fault of his own or the machine, but it was actually a fully operational metal detector. So we kind of forward up here. It wasn't until the 1920s when Gerhard Fischer, the guy who created the owner of Fischer Metal Detectors, he created a radio directional finder, but found out that there was an anomalous. Thank you. It was getting anomalous signals that were caused by ore in rocks. And it was from that point he realized that if metal could be found by a radio wave, he could then locate metal with a coil that was transmitting radio waves. Kind of makes sense. So with that in mind, he filed for a patent and patented the first actual metal detector in 1925. They had used them in the early 1900s as well, but they were big, huge, bulky machines. You can find pictures of them. Huge backpacks on the people carrying them, and they had these two large spools that were in a V formation, so a big round spool on the back, big round spool on the front, and they would literally have to carry this beside them looking for mines. But where they were walking, there was nothing checking for mines directly in the way that they were walking. So it kind of became redundant. But in 1920s, Fisher created one that had two spoils, two rings that worked just like the big ones that were before. It became clear that it could be used to help clear unexploded ordnance from World War I battlefields, which it actually had done to this time. But back to Bell, it seemed that his experiment had failed, or had it? In a paper that he wrote, Bell had this to say. He wrote, "The negative result led me to fear that the extensive area of feeble sound might have been due to some extensive area of metal that was unsuspected at the time, and I proceeded to the executive mansion the next morning, August 2nd, to ascertain from the surgeons whether they were perfectly sure that all metal had been removed from the neighborhood of the bed. It was then recollected that underneath the horsehair mattress, one which the president then lay, was another mattress composed of steel wires." So it was on August 2nd of 1881 that he suddenly realized that it wasn't his machine. It was actually the fact that his machine was working, and working better than he thought. It was an induction balance machine, basically meaning that this device produced no sound when initially turned on. So it would need manual manipulation to adjust the flow of electricity to both parts of the coil. So it had something that kind of looked like an old school telephone listening device. You know, the ones where you pick up the listening point. It looked like one of those, and it had two small coils inside it. But you had to ensure that the electricity was going in the correct format and in the correct wavelengths to that device before it to actually work. Now, because of this, Bell obtained a copy of the same style of mattress with steel wires, and after looking at it, he concluded that it should not have been a problem. However, because of his wife's health, which was now failing, he left Washington, D.C. and never conducted the necessary experiment on the president again. Bell mentions in a footnote that the bullet might have been too deep in the body to be discovered by his method, which we now know to not be the fact because he was detecting through the president's body the springs, the mattress underneath, which means that he would have been able to easily locate the bullet. He was just in the wrong area at the time, which he didn't know when he wrote that. Technology is now advanced enough that even lying directly on a metal table, we can detect the body and not receive a false signal. Basically, kind of like using a pinpointer, which would be almost a perfect kind of device. Something like this has been used recently to locate bullets and shrapnel located inside patients when the patient is open. Basically, not needing to wheel the patient back to to an X-ray machine or an MRI machine to locate more fragments. They can now use something like a pinpointer to locate the fragments and physically remove them without needing excess time to move back and forth. Bell had been so close to the first successful use of a metal detector to save a life. Now, in September 19th, 1881, President James A. Garfield died. Charles Guiteau stood trial for the assassination of the president, but there was a problem. The president died from sepsis and infection from all the doctors, instruments, and unsterilized bandages. He didn't die from a bullet. In fact, there's no mention that the doctors at the time saying that he would have died from the bullet at all. Doctors nowadays look back at the evidence and the medical paperwork and all the stuff that they'd written about it and now conclude that there was 100% chance that he would have survived if they had just stopped digging in his body. On one point, one of the doctors searching for the bullet had actually punctured the president's liver with his finger while he was looking through. Your face is priceless.
How do you do that? How do you...
I can only imagine. Oh, he doesn't need this. He doesn't need this. What was that? I don't know. It's bleeding now, but just put some tape on there.
Look, I'm not squeamish. I've I'm a former anatomy student. I majored in anatomy, but the thought of somebody just shoving their hands into somebody else's body cavity and then with such force that you puncture an organ, that's just...
It's insane. And I don't even know, I can't find any kind of amounts, because he was alive. He got shot in July and he died in September. So he was alive 3 months. And
he was alive for a while.
Yeah. And so they were digging through his body a lot during this time. And in fact,
I mean, it doesn't take a lot to stick your fingers through something,
no.
But I would have thought that they would have gone, we need to be really, really careful that we don't do this.
And how many different people did they have? Like okay, Frank, it's your turn today. Come on in.
Yeah. And I think, like, but bacteria and, germ theory of disease, was... When did this happen? The 40s, 1840s,
1880s, 1881.
Yeah. So I don't know if that. I can't remember off the top of my head whether that germ theory of disease was around. If it was in its infancy, and it was probably not being taught to people. So they just had no idea of how diseases were transmitted, and how infection was transmitted, and
I don't think that came out until about 10 or 20 years.
But, putting your finger, puncturing something, I would have thought that they would have had a little bit more of an idea about, to be gentle.
Oops, liver.
But, I wasn't there. I don't know, but,
I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah. But, yeah, just the fact that, it was sepsis and everything else and an infection that actually caused the president to die. So Guiteau brought this.
We look at this stuff today. We look at this today and we go, oh, how barbaric, how crazy. Why didn't they know this? Imagine what they're going to be thinking about us in 150 years' time.
Yeah, that's what I brought up. That's what I brought up last week, the last episode, when I was talking about, in the 1960s, we were issuing whiskey to kids with colds. It's just insanity. Give your kid a shot of whiskey. Well, that'll put him to sleep, that's for sure. But anyway, Guiteau brought up the fact that he had only shot the president, but it was the doctors who had been responsible solely for his death. However, the court actually said, you know what? This is the late 1800s and a fair trial is few and far between. And someone should pay, and we're not lynching doctors. And I don't care what you say, tobacco and cocaine is good for you. But even though they had tried,
so he paid. Huh? He got in trouble.
Yeah,
so he got in trouble.
Yeah, he got in trouble. So even though they had tried using the insanity plea, basically this is literally one of the first times the insanity plea had ever been used in the world as far as a case, which Charles clearly was psychologically challenged. The court found him guilty of murder on the 25th of January, 1882. Guess what? Exactly, I don't know how many years ago this was. 140 years ago? 146?
I don't have a brain that functions that
Yeah,
fast.
I don't either. 136, I think. So on June 30th, 1882, the gallows were set up in Washington, D.C., and Charles Guiteau, as a last request, requested an orchestra to play while he recited a poem. The orchestra was denied. A lot of people want, at this time, they want to, let me see my wife. I'd love to stoop my wife one last time, or I want the biggest pint of beer that I can get. No, he wanted an orchestra so he could say a poem. So the day came, and Charles danced his way up the stairs to the executioner, shook the man's hand, and waved at the crowd with a large smile on his face, to the surprise of everybody that was gathered. He then read
He definitely wanted to be remembered.
Oh, he definitely did. He then read his poem called "I'm Going to the Lordy," and then was hung. Guess what? I've got the poem. Really? Here is a poem.
And guess what? I think you're going to read it.
Yeah, I got it. The poem goes, I'm going to the Lordy, I'm so glad. I'm going to the Lordy, I'm so glad. I'm going to the Lordy. Glory, hallelujah, I'm going to the Lordy. I love the Lordy with all my soul. Glory, hallelujah. And that is the reason I'm going to the Lord. Glory, hallelujah, I'm going to the Lord. I saved my party and my land. Glory, hallelujah. But they have murdered me for it, and that's the reason I'm going to the Lordy. Glory, hallelujah, This is no joke.
My guess is that, it was delivered differently.
I'm pretty sure it was. But the whole thing is basically, I'm going to the Lordy. I'm so glad. Glory, hallelujah. I saved my party and my land, but they have murdered me for it. That's basically the only part that's slightly different. And it just keeps going like that for a while. Basically, the ego on this guy, first of all, he thought, because he wrote a pamphlet, he thought he got Garfield elected. He thought he should be given a position. He thought that killing the president would get rid of the guy that he had a problem with as Secretary of the State. And now he felt, in his poem that he read right before being hung, he announced to everybody that he saved the party and the land, and they are murdering him for it. And he happily got hung that day. So anyway, that's the first time metal detectors had been used in a medical capacity, and a little bit more in-depth into the basically the second working metal detector in the world, created by Mr. Alexander Graham Bell in the early 1880s. And that's it from me.
Oh, it's my turn. What am I saying?
I don't know. But yeah, that's a really good story. I think it's actually really funny. The ego on that this guy had one of the biggest egos. He was like,
was it ego or was it a mental health?
It was both. It was the problem was I think that the guy suffered from some kind of a mental health issue that made him believe that he was more responsible than was the actual truth. You know what I'm saying? He could say, yeah.
Like a personality disorder?
Yeah, it's kind of some kind of a personality disorder. It would be like me saying, that person should run for president, and then that person wins presidency, and now I feel like because I said that, I'm responsible for that person getting elected. And that's how his brain was actually working. What I often wonder when I'm reading this story or while I was researching this, if Alexander Graham Bell had actually found the bullet on the day that he had actually been using it, would the president still be alive? Do you think sepsis and infection had already taken its toll by this point? And we're talking a month after the shooting. So
when did he
July 2nd.
Was it the day that he got shot?
No,
or was
no.
It afterwards?
No, there's the day itself is rather unclear. Nobody's actually announcing what day it was. All I could find, it was approximately a month later. So it's early August when he actually went there, because it was just a second. Let me find exactly when.
Because my thoughts are if
August 1st.
If he didn't get it, August.
Yeah.
Okay, so if he didn't get to the president with the metal detector on the day, and before people started poking their fingers in, then chances are the president probably would have gotten an infection anyway. I mean, I don't know how many times people, did they open him up and re-stick their fingers in there? Like, how many times did they do that? But, your body is a very precious place. That's why you've got a skin on it, which is the barrier to stop all of these infections or these pathogenic organisms from getting to you. So the moment that you cut it up and you shove something in there that's not clean, that's danger land, that you can really start to get some nasty infections. And it could have been, like, if the bullet was dirty itself, it might have caused an infection. You just never know. So chances are he probably would have gotten an infection. Whether he would have died from that infection, that's another story. But the wound itself. People have lived with lead in their bodies for years. People get shot and they can't get the bullet out, and they survive. So he may have survived that. All they needed to do was stop the bleeding. But
yeah, no, but that's what they're saying. They said that there is absolutely modern medicine actually says right now, even given the chance, given how medicine was back in the 1880s, they said looking at all the documentation from the shooting and the doctors and the physicians, that there is no sign that the president would have died from the wound. He would have had a really bad back problem because it had punctured the spinal, one of the bones in his spine, but it had not punctured his spinal cord. So he would have had full use of his faculties,
full motor function.
Yeah, exactly. And but there was no sign, there was no reason why he would have died. But it was a matter of these doctors and not knowing about germ infections and everything else, and just constantly going in and just moving stuff around, like you said, inside this man's temple and puncturing and piercing and probably just removing.
Well, the other thing is, if you've got intestines in there, you've got, all sorts of fluids that are encapsulated and belong to this certain, circulatory system, and the moment you slice that and you get one set of fluid going to another, then that can cause inflammatory problems. It can cause all sorts of
especially when you think of
pleasant things for the person who is experiencing
it. Especially when you think a doctor's finger punctured his liver. I mean that's
or look, how do you know that they probably didn't, but if some of your if your stomach gets punctured and you get acid pouring out into other parts of your body, that's not very good.
No, but it's the 1880s. It's the 1880s. They knew that if you had that happening, you put a leech on it, so it would have been better.
Bloodletting was a popular thing.
It was. But we're like you were saying, this is about 10 maybe 15 years prior to them actually writing the book on germ medicine and understanding what was causing all this. And I think and what if his machine had actually worked? Would we have been out searching for gold coins back in the...
No, we'd be buying Bell detectors today. There'd be a brand, Bell detector.
Hey, we're copywriting that at GDA, by the way. We're taking the Bell brand detectors. But I think...
We've got to do an ad for that next week.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be doing that. I need to talk to Rudis. Maybe we can get the Rudis Bell detector from GDA. But anyway, anything else going on in your neck of the woods?
No, not really. We've got a long weekend in Australia, so I dare say there will be a few people out there hunting the beaches tomorrow. Today is, the day that we're recording is what we call Australia Day, and generally there's fireworks and people head to the beach because it's hot. Oh. And people lose coins and jewelry and stuff on the beach. So most people I know in the metal detecting community look forward to making an early morning call.
You're telling me that there's a day in Australia where everybody in Australia just drinks and gets drunk and loses stuff on the beach? I don't believe it.
We've got a few of those days.
It's called
in January.
It's called
One's
January.
New Year's Day and one is Australia Day.
I
don't do that. I generally, I might go to the beach, but that's if I want a pizza and I need some pizza money, I might go to the beach. But I would much prefer to head inland, which is what I did for New Year's Day. I've just gone, I'm steering clear of the beach, I'm going inland. So I will probably do that with my mate.
Yeah, I thought the Australian drinking day was January 1st to December 31st, but
that is right. That one, yeah. Well, yeah.
They celebrate the same holiday as the Germans do, so that's all right.
Yeah. Australia does have a big alcohol culture.
Yeah, same here.
Because there's a lot of holidays around the beach. There's a lot of people at the beach, and I do go to the beach. I do go to the beach every now and then, and I'll collect all of those bottle tops and sparklers and cigarette butts and
Yeah, and a lot
whatever
of people,
other rubbish I find on the beach. But
a lot of people don't realize that in Australia, I think it's 80% of the population lives near the coastline.
lives near the coast. That's correct. Yeah, because the center of the country is just so dry, and it gets really hot there as well.
Yeah.
Like the hot day that we had the other day is, you get several days in a row like that.
Yeah, I bet.
Inland.
So, yeah, that's going to do it for the show, everybody. What we're going to do is I want to remind you, head on over to Global Detection Adventures on Instagram and Facebook. If you're on Instagram, when you share a find, make sure you use the hashtag GDAPod and link us to it. We'll definitely share that around, and maybe you'll make it onto the Find of the Week next week. The other thing that you might want to do is if you're on Twitter, hit me up on Twitter. You can find me at Lance Goolsby. That's all one word, at Lance Goolsby. Find me on there. Or if you want to just email me at the brand new show podcast email, and that's lance@gdapod.com. The website should be coming out. I hope I can get off my lazy butt and actually get this thing finished in the next couple days. Me and 42 are going to be looking at this over the course of the weekend, and hopefully she'll be giving me some insight. She's got a definitely better artistic eye than I do in this kind of stuff. You should see her photographs. I've seen your photographs.
Artistic. I'm not artistic.
Don't give me that eye. But until next time, we'll see you guys out on the field. Good luck out there. Make sure you stay safe. We'll see you out on the fields. Let's dig it up, y'all.